Hello everyone, it's been so long since I filmed a video. If you keep up with me on my Instagram or my community tab, then I shared with you that I'm in a new location. I've been moving, so that has been taking up a lot of my time, but I think I'm ready to get back into filming. I still have a lot of crap everywhere. The whole room is covered in a mess, boxes and all. So this is the background you get for now. But yeah, I had a community post, I think I posted it 2 days ago, asking you guys what video you wanted to see next because it's been so long, and majority of you guys actually said you wanted a writing video, which I love. I think that's so fun, but I literally just did like 3 in the past month and I have been neglecting the language learners. So since language learning was number 2, I just thought I'd come on here and film a language one instead, and then you guys can have a writing video coming up soon, so expect that. But I thought it'd be fun to do a video talking all about the things they don't tell you when you learn a new language, pretty much the reality of learning a new language, because sometimes it makes it sound, I'm not gonna say easier than it is, because I don't feel like, I mean, maybe some language YouTubers make it seem a lot easier, but I feel like there's a lot that you probably won't know until you start learning, and you don't know until you know. I just wanted to film this video giving you a little bit of an insight, so if you are new to language learning, you can probably expect some of these, or if you are a long-term language learner, then you can probably relate to a lot. So the first one that I wanted to address is that just because a tip or advice worked for a certain language YouTuber or a friend, a language learner, someone else, doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. And I just wanted to put this one first just because I love watching YouTube tip videos, especially when I first was starting out learning a language and I tried to learn so much information, wanted to see what works, what's the best way of learning. And not to say that all YouTube tip videos are trash or something, a lot of them are very helpful and I feel like have helped with my progress a lot, but I feel like sometimes YouTubers could come off as if like, hey, I have the secret sauce, this is how you learn, listen to me, it worked for me, I am proof that this works. And that's great, but like learning isn't like a one-size-fits-all situation, and you really just have to go out there and practice on your own, take the tips and advice that you gather and put it into practice, and that's when you'll know if it actually works or not for you. So if some person's coming to you in a video saying this is the only reason, take it with a grain of salt. And that's not to say that these people don't know what they're talking about and that it's wrong. It's just there's different learners, and if I make a video, which I probably will if I haven't already made a video about how to learn a language, I ain't no hypocrite. It's just that you can't take this as if, you know, this is the only way to learn, and if it doesn't work for you that they're liars. It's just no, it just, learning isn't a one-size-fits-all thing, and it takes a lot of trial and error. And I feel like with this, that's super important, is honestly just learning why they're sharing that tip. And a lot of times when they give tips, they'll explain why this example or doing this thing is important, because then if you know the why, there's so many examples that can replace the what. So like, for example, if someone says, hey, I talk to myself a lot when I have free time, when I'm in the shower, just like talking, getting practice in, because I feel like it's important to get speaking practice in, make the language feel more natural in your mouth. It's something that you can do while doing other things, stuff like that. If you try talking to yourself and you're like, this is awkward, this makes me feel weird and uncomfortable, I don't like doing it, then just take the reasoning behind it, which is getting practice in and letting the words feel more natural in your mouth. Take that and call a friend, meet up with your second cousin who speaks the language fluently, talk to your mom. Like, there's other things that you can do instead that fulfill the purpose in the same way. So whenever you watch these language learning videos and tip videos, just learn the why, not the what, because that's what's really important. The next one that I wanted to talk about is that there is no language learning app that will make you fluent in any language, period. The thing is, when Duolingo was like poppin', people like discovered it. They're like, oh, this is fun and I'm learning a new language, like this is really cool. And then they keep practicing, right? Like, let me keep doing my language learning, because Duolingo kind of makes it fun, and then you get kind of like rewarded for like completing these lessons, and that's all good and dandy. But the thing is, it's not gonna make you fluent by any means. And I feel like a lot of us probably know this by now, but just for the people in the back, it will not make you fluent. And language learning apps are meant to be supplemental to your learning. And you know, it's not bad if, let's say, Duolingo or whatever other app exposed you to the language or like piqued your interest in language learning, but it's just when when you rely too heavily on apps. I remember when I first was getting into my language learning journey, I like downloaded so many apps. I still have a lot of apps on my phone just because I was so intrigued and I wanted to grab all the resources, and I was like, this is so helpful and all good and dandy, but it's honestly not and should not be the main way you learn a language. And not that it's not helpful, but it's just not the most efficient way, especially because like no app is going to cover an entire language, like everything you need to learn, from, you know, how to speak formally or just like the latest slang, because language is always changing. And I feel like that's where real people come into the mix, talking to real people who know what's relevant or what's not, going on social media because they're going to be talking like the current generation, which I guess this is a side note, but I just remembered I heard from, I don't know if it was a YouTuber or a person in real life, I don't know where I heard this, but I heard someone say something about how immigrants, when they move from wherever they came from to, let's say, America, a lot of the time they still speak and maybe will talk to their children in the slang that was relevant during the time they still lived in that country. So let's say they moved from, you know, Mexico in the 80s, they're still using 80s slang and stuff like that, because when you're not living in the country, you're probably not going to be as up to date, especially when you're an older generation. You probably aren't keeping up with the slang, or you don't even care about the slang. But what's interesting is that they'll be talking to their children with the slang and those little things within language that was common, let's say, in the 80s. And so these kids are like kind of like in an interesting time bubble that doesn't reflect how, let's say, people of their age in Mexico currently speak. So it's more so something that affects the first generation children because they're not living in that country, but they speak with how their parents raised them. But the person from the motherland is speaking in the latest slang and stuff like that. Of course, there's nuance. Like, people could probably be visiting family, have friends. They could be very still in touch with their roots and all that stuff. But if you are just isolated and only have your parents to speak to in that language or other older people, then I just thought that that was really kind of interesting. But anyways, back to apps. I think that's what the tip was. But yeah, there's no single app that's gonna cover everything. And even if there was, it's just better to talk to people in real life. Like, have you seen how long these Duolingo lessons go? Like, they go on like forever. And honestly, it's probably in their best interest for you to not learn the language quickly, because then you stay on the app, they make more money, like, you know what I mean? So you really can learn a language, what is it, like in Spanish and other Latin languages and like German. Like, if you're a native English speaker, you could probably learn in like 23 weeks, 6 months, something like that. I cannot probably go through all Duolingo lessons in 6 months with my free time. And even if I did, will I be fully fluent? I don't think so. Anyways, all this to say, use language learning apps as something that's supplemental to your learning. Don't make it the primary strategy in how you want to become fluent, because it's not efficient, takes too much time. And I also feel like language learning is very unique to you because, for example, I would love to learn how to talk about my hobbies and interests that are probably different than your hobbies and interests. So I would probably prioritize different vocabulary that you don't care about. The next one is that progress is not linear. This one kind of hurts, and I feel like it's something that we can all relate to, but here's my theory, right? Like, when you first learn a language, you don't know anything. You're starting from scratch. So then when you start learning how to say your name, your occupation, what you do for work, like basic stuff, you're like, oh shoot, I'm pretty good. Like, you start getting confident, like, because you started from nothing, so you can only go up from here, right? Like, it's a actual upward trend when you start from nothing. But the more things you learn, the more difficult the grammar, the more difficult the topics you're learning are, the more information you have to retain. You start forgetting some things. The rate in which you learn starts to decrease. So it's very easy to get discouraged. And when you mix that with forgetting it and being discouraged, you're gonna have a lot of up and down progress. And of course your confidence will go down as well. Not like this is the formula that's absolutely gonna happen no matter what, but it's just, I think, a very normal thing that, you know, you start off very strong because you don't know anything, but once you start learning stuff, it's like, oh shoot, this is kind of hard. I'm not moving in the speed I once was. But it's kind of just like a trick. I feel like it's just how you learn things. And I think just knowing that that's normal is really important, because I don't feel like a lot of people, especially when I was first getting into learning languages, it wasn't something that was talked to into it as much. I feel like a lot of the YouTubers that I was watching were pretty much just saying like, this is the secret sauce, you know, this is how you learn, and not really talk so much of the struggles. And so when I would be struggling, I was like, dang, like I'm not doing this right, there's something wrong, like what am I missing? But it's just normal, like that's just how it is. Like you got to keep pushing it. And that goes into the next tip, which is that you can't rely on motivation alone. You know, if you have so much up and down, there's gonna be points, of course, where you want to quit and just forget about it all. But I think that if you know your why and why you want to learn a language, then it helps you become more disciplined in sticking with it. And not that you have to have a why that's like so profound and amazing. Like as long as your why is stronger than being lazy and giving up, then you can definitely learn a language. But the rate in which you get there is really not important. But as long as you keep pushing through, then you'll be successful. And you know, relying on motivation isn't probably the best thing to rely on when you want to learn a new language. And then the last tip, probably one of the most important, if not the most important tip, is that you cannot be fluent if you keep translating in your head. And I learned this way too late, I feel like, in my language learning journey. I didn't even know that like translating in your head was a bad thing. I just thought that that was just the way to do it. And the thing is that you just can't listen to a language and then revert back to your native language to try to understand what is being said, because then, well, one, language keeps going. Like let's say you're not native in English, or if you're not advanced in English and you're just constantly listening to me and going back to your native language, then you know, I'm still speaking. You're missing words and information that I'm currently saying because you're still trying to remember the first thing I said and translating it into your native language. So that is just something that you really need to not do. And it's very difficult, and I still do it sometimes. I have to catch myself and like be like, girl, stop, because you're slowing down your progress. And I feel like that's something that you have to be wary of when it comes to flashcards, which flashcards aren't bad. But if I have a flashcard that says house and on the back of it says casa, then you're just thinking every time I see casa, I mean house. Casa, house, casa, house. But if you kind of visualize a house instead of, and take the word house out of it, then that can be kind of helpful. I really like those flashcards that have like the word, let's say casa, and you turn it around and it's just a picture of a house. Then those are pretty cool as well. But like trying to associate the actual meaning of the word with the object itself and take your native language out of it is honestly super key. And this, I feel like, primarily goes for grammar as well, because there's so many like different forms, like let's say past, present, future, preterite, all that stuff. Like you won't just see the word in its like infinitive form or its plain unconjugated form. So trying to remember and trying to like, I don't know, do too much thinking in your head is way too complicated. And honestly, I feel like, I don't know, like trying to memorize phrases, like if I say hola, ¿cómo estás? You're not thinking hola, hello, ¿cómo, how, estás, you are. Like you're not translating like that. You just know, even if you're not trying to learn Spanish, just because of how common that phrase is, you know that it just means hello, how are you? Like even my parents, who are Nigerian, know hola, ¿cómo estás? They know gracias, but they're not thinking what that translates to. They just know what it is and what it means. And that's just pretty much one of the biggest hurdles that I've struggled with, and I feel like maybe a lot of people struggle with, but they don't know that that's the problem, or they didn't even know that that was a problem to begin with. So if that's you, then I strongly advise trying to learn ways to stop translating in your head if you can, because it is definitely something that can hold you back. And it's hard because whenever you ask someone, oh, what does that mean? They're gonna respond to you in English or your native language. So then that's how you associate, and it can be, I don't know, maybe a slippery slope, but that's why it's really cool. Like I remember in high school when I was taking Spanish class, if someone said, you know, what does that mean? You know, they would try to describe the thing in Spanish, and I feel like that could be really helpful. So yeah, I think that's all. It's definitely getting dark right now, but I am so glad to be back filming videos. If you guys have any requests for other language learning videos for me to add to my little language learning diaries, then be sure to let me know. And if you like me a lot, then you can definitely follow me on Instagram at Amina's Library, because I like to post on there sometimes. I feel like I post more on my stories than on my actual page, but don't forget to subscribe, because if you've seen me before, that's rude that you haven't subscribed yet. But if you made it to the end of this video, then you obviously like me. So go ahead and click that that subscribe button because I want us to have that type of relationship. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one, hopefully with better lighting and a better background. But yeah, I'll see you later. Bye.